Today I'm going to talk to you about reversals. There's a common misperception that reversals are associated with dyslexia, but it's really actually very typical for all learners to make reversals as they're learning to read and write. So I'm going to explain why that is and how we can correct reversals through instruction. The human brain is not wired for reading and writing, but it is wired for vision. It's wired for symmetry of visual perception, thanks to millions of years of human evolution for survival. The part of the brain that processes visual input of letters is called the visual word form. But before we learn to read, that part of the brain, the visual word form part of the brain, is used for facial recognition and for recognizing objects. So this explains why, for example, when you see a chair facing different directions, your brain is still able to recognize that's still a chair, even though it's facing different ways. Or if you see a face turned different ways, you can still recognize that's a face and that face belongs to the same person. So when we learn to read, we have letters like lowercase b and lowercase d, lowercase p and lowercase q. The brain has to learn to suppress its natural wiring. The brain's natural wiring is sending a message that these are the same letters, just seen from different directions, just like that chair facing different ways or the face seen from different angles or different sides. So when it comes to instruction, we actually have to impose asymmetry. And the way to do that is through motor movements with sensory feedback. And this comes through handwriting. Lots and lots of practice with handwriting. So I'm going to show you an instructional routine to help eradicate reversals. This will just take a few minutes every day, or you can, however long your student needs until they have been able to eradicate reversals in their handwriting. So for lowercase b, and this is actually much more efficient with a dry erase marker and a whiteboard. You're going to guide your student to form the letter lowercase b, saying, bat hits the ball at the bottom, b. Bat hits the ball at the bottom, b. And if your student is not anxious about being timed, and you can always take the pressure off, make it a game, make it fun. You can set the timer for a minute and see how many B's they can form correctly in a minute. Saying bat hits the ball at the bottom, but if you see that they are forming the letter B correctly, they can drop that saying part, bat hits the ball at the bottom, but always, always have them say the sound B as they form the letter. This is so important because as they say the sound B, as they write the letter, what's happening is they're forming a connection between the part of the brain that processes sound and the part of the brain that processes the visual input of the letter, and that's connecting those two areas of the brain, which is so important for reading and spelling. So for the letter D, you're going to follow a similar instructional routine. For letter D, you're going to have them say doorknob, door, down. Doorknob, door, down. Again, you can set the timer and see how many. Always, always have them say duh. So doorknob, door, down, duh. Doorknob, door, down, duh. Again, so important for those neural pathways to form to say the letter sound. And you'll notice there's alliteration in each of those sayings. Again, it's helping another hook in the brain to help reinforce the connection between the sound and the letters. So again, for the letter D, you can set the timer for a minute and see how many times they can correctly form the letter D in a minute. The last step of the instructional routine is for you to dictate words that contain both B and D in the word. This is the most challenging step that your student will have, because this is the step that requires integration and application of skill. So you can expect your student to struggle more with this step, and you can always guide them with corrective feedback using the prompts that you've used in the previous steps. So through this practice with this sensory motor feedback, through this handwriting practice, and continually practicing saying the sound that the letter makes as they're forming the letters again and again, you will notice that your student is able to impose that asymmetry on the formation of the letters, and they're able to discriminate the directionality and tell the difference between B's and D's and P's and Q's.